Did you know that being too nice can actually work against you? It's true. The very qualities that make you a kind, caring person can sometimes lead to you being taken advantage of or disrespected by others. And if you've ever bent over backwards for someone only to watch them take it for granted, you already know exactly what I mean. But why does this happen, and what can we do about it? In this video, we're going to explore psychological perspectives on why nice people often get the short end of the stick and uncover some timeless wisdom that can help you maintain your kindness while also commanding the respect you deserve. We'll dive into the psychology, neuroscience, and ancient philosophy behind this phenomenon so you can understand what's really going on and make some powerful shifts. By the end, you'll have a fresh understanding of how to be your best, most authentic self without letting others walk all over you. So, let's get started. The first key principle we need to understand is 1. Kindness without boundaries is just people-pleasing in disguise. Let's be direct here. There's a difference between being kind and being endlessly accommodating. One comes from strength, the other comes from fear. Psychologist Karen Horney called it a neurotic need for approval. This deep, almost unconscious drive to be liked, accepted, and never seen as difficult. Does that sound familiar? When you can't say no without feeling guilty, when you apologize for things that aren't your fault, when you shrink yourself to make a room more comfortable, that's not kindness. That's anxiety dressed up in a smile. The Stoics understood this completely. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What he meant was stop performing goodness for an audience. True virtue doesn't need applause. It doesn't need everyone to like you. The moment you realize your niceness is rooted in the fear of conflict rather than genuine care, that's the moment everything starts to shift. 2. People respect edges, not endless softness. Think about water for a second. It's gentle, flowing, life-giving, but leave it without container edges, banks, and it just spreads thin until it disappears. That's what happens to nice people who have no boundaries. Here's a truth you've probably never considered till this moment. People don't actually respect those who never push back. Psychologically, when someone never disagrees, never says no, and always adjusts to everyone else's comfort, our brains unconsciously register them as low status. Not because we're cruel, it's just how human social wiring works. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux's research on emotional circuits says it all. It states that our brains are constantly scanning social environments for cues about who holds power and who doesn't. Constant agreeableness registers, subconsciously, as submission, and submission over time invites dominance. This isn't about becoming cold or aggressive, it's more of understanding that a little friction is a sign of self-respect. People respect what they have to work a little to get. 3. The shadow side of being too nice. Carl Jung had a concept called the shadow, which simply refers to the unconscious part of us that hides the feelings, traits, and desires we've been told are unacceptable. For a lot of nice people, the shadow is absolutely packed with unexpressed anger, resentment, and repressed needs. Here's where it gets interesting. The effects of being too nice show up not as kindness, but as passive aggression, emotional exhaustion, and silent resentment. You smile on the outside and quietly seethe on the inside. You help people and then feel used. You say, "It's fine," when it's absolutely not fine. That gap between what you feel and what you show is what Jung would call the unintegrated shadow material. And until you do the inner work to acknowledge those repressed emotions, the consequences of being too nice will keep building under the surface. True kindness has to be honest. Otherwise, it's just a mask.
4. Stoicism didn't teach passivity. It taught principled strength. There's a massive misconception floating around that Stoicism means being emotionless, passive, or quietly tolerant of everything. That couldn't be further from the truth. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't preaching passivity. He was preaching discernment. Know what you can control. Act on it. Let go of the rest. The Stoics believed deeply in virtue, and virtue requires courage. Saying no when something violates your values, that's virtuous. Standing your ground when someone disrespects you, that's virtuous. The why being too nice is bad conversation becomes very clear through a Stoic lens. Excessive agreeableness is a failure of courage, not an excess of goodness. And believe me, what's coming next is the part that ties it all together. But before getting into that, imagine having a toolkit of science-backed strategies to improve your life. That's what this channel is all about. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. And if this resonated with you, spread the knowledge by sharing it. Let's continue with 5. Your self-betrayal teaches others how to treat you. Here's something that might sting a little, and I say this with full respect and empathy. When you consistently abandon your own needs to accommodate others, you are training people to expect that from you. Behavioral psychology is painfully clear on this. Robert Cialdini's work on influence shows that people operate largely on patterns and expectations. When you always say yes, yes becomes the expected response. When you finally say no, it feels like a betrayal to them, even though it's the first honest thing you've said in months. The consequences of being too nice include this cruel irony. The more you sacrifice yourself for others, the more they come to see your sacrifice as normal, expected, and frankly, owed. That's not a reflection of their character. It's a reflection of the pattern you've helped create. Changing that pattern starts with one honest conversation, the one you have with yourself. 6. Anger is information, not a character flaw. Here comes the detail most people overlook. A lot of nice people were taught, usually in childhood, that anger is wrong, dangerous, unattractive. Hence, they buried it. They smiled through it, reasoned it away, and called themselves the bigger person. But here's the thing. Anger is data. Marsha Linehan, the psychologist who developed dialectical behavior therapy, emphasizes that emotions aren't problems to eliminate. They're signals to listen to. When you feel that slow burn of resentment after saying yes again when you meant no, your nervous system is trying to tell you something important. The effects of being too nice often accumulate quietly in the body. Bessel van der Kolk, trauma researcher and author of The Body Keeps the Score, found that suppressed emotions don't just disappear, they get stored somatically. Chronic fatigue, tension, anxiety, these are often the physical bill that arrives after years of emotional self-suppression. Acknowledging your anger doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you an honest one.
7. Respect starts with how you see yourself. This reason makes all the difference. You get disrespected because you cannot demand respect from others when you haven't given it to yourself first, period. Seneca wrote, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." That being said, that if they stop serving others, they'll stop being loved. That's the wound talking, not the truth. Neuroscience backs this up by opining that self-perception directly influences how others perceive us. When your self-concept is strong, confident, and grounded, you naturally carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You hold eye contact longer. And people, without knowing exactly why, treat you with more respect. The shift doesn't start with other people changing. It starts with you deciding, quietly but firmly, that you matter too. 8. Nice people often lack healthy aggression. Okay, if you think you've heard it all, hang on for a shocker. Nice people get disrespected because they often lack a healthy sense of aggression. We're so focused on being kind and accommodating that we forget to stand up for ourselves when necessary. We let small slights and boundary violations slide until eventually we reach a breaking point and explode in a way that surprises and alienates those around us. We need to cultivate a balanced approach, one where we can assert ourselves firmly and confidently without resorting to aggression or hostility. This is the kind of healthy, grounded assertiveness that commands respect. 9. Nice people often struggle with emotional regulation. Let's be honest, being a nice person can be emotionally draining. We're constantly navigating the needs and emotions of others, and it can be easy to lose touch with our own inner landscape. This can lead to a lack of emotional regulation, where we either bottle up our feelings until we explode, or we let them spill out in ways that undermine our authority and credibility. We have to be intentional about cultivating emotional intelligence and self-awareness. This means taking time to tune in to our own feelings and learning to respond to challenging situations with a calm, centered presence. Conclusion: nice people aren't the problem here. The world needs more genuine kindness, but kindness without self-respect isn't kindness, it's self-abandonment. And the Stoics, the psychologists, the neuroscientists, they all point to the same truth. Real strength is calm, boundaried, and honest. You can be warm and firm. You can be caring and have limits. You can be generous without being depleted. That balance is where the respect lives. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, which of these 7 principles hit closest to home? Which one made you stop and think? Share it. Let's learn from each other, because that's what this community is built on. If this video added something to your day, give it a like. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, and hit that notification bell so YouTube lets you know the moment a new video drops. Thank you for watching. Let's do it again next time.